Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we are back with another window shopping video, this time for Hella Handmade. Hella Handmade Creations, or HHC, is another monthly pre-order kind of shopping marketplace. So very similar to PPU in that way, but it takes place over the course of a full week instead of a weekend, and every month the makers have their own individual themes that they follow. So as usual, I'll save some more thoughts for the end. For now, let's just browse the website. Okay, so here is the website for Hella Handmade this month. It'll be open from the 14th through the 21st, and as usual, we'll start with the first two rows, and it looks like only the first row is nail polish. And from here, I would say my favorite is the Alchemy Lacquers Water Lily. Oh, that looks so pretty, so ethereal and magical. It kind of reminds me of another Alchemy Lacquers that I had picked up. I think it was called Solar Halo, where it's kind of a flaky polish. It's a bit different than this, where I feel like the flakies in this are more of that larger iridescent kind of variety and in a very monotone color palette, if that makes sense, or it's just shifting between yellow and green. But Solar Halo just had a very different kind of look, even though it also had flakies. This one is kind of tempting, I'm not gonna lie, especially because it's inspired by Monet's painting of water lilies. I love it. I want to double check. I mean, I don't think I have anything else like it in my collection, but I want to really make sure this is gonna be a flaky polish that I won't end up regretting later. You know what I mean? Because I feel like more often than not, it's the flakies that I end up regretting. So I would hate for that to happen. But for now, I think I do want to add it to my wish list. Okay, there we go. So we can go back and move on to the next two rows. So from here, the one that's immediately catching my eyes is this BCB. This mask is my badge, just because it is kind of reminding me of Kathleen & Co.'s Release. Not an exact dupe though. I think this is a bit darker, like a much more plummy purple base, but it's giving a very, very similar vibe. I know a lot of people, whenever I do share that polish from Kathleen & Co., they're like, oh my god, I should have gotten it. I wouldn't say this is like an exact dupe, but it's a pretty close enough-ish vibe. Well, I mean, it is pretty dark. It's like the dark sister polish to it. And even though it is purple with this reddish pink base, I don't think it's anything like Mooncat's Fields of Lavender, for example. Like, that's a much more reddish shimmer. This one is very pink, still very fiery though. It looks like it shifts to orange in extreme light, so it is still very, very beautiful. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. The other magnetic here is catching my eye, the Bee's Knees, Then Pay With Your Blood. This looks like a pretty shade of, you know, kind of like a raspberry pink. Oh my god, yeah, it's literally described as raspberry pink with a magnetic hollow shimmer and gold to green sibling unicorn pea or pigment. So immediately I'm a lot less interested knowing this is a magnetic hollow, because while it is beautiful in theory, I feel like it just doesn't look as nice, or I don't know, I just would prefer if the hollow was a lot stronger. And this is one of those finishes that unfortunately the hollow will diminish over time, so it's just not worth it to me. But I do still think it is really pretty. I mean, obviously I'm gonna be a fan of a raspberry pink. I feel like it's still a bright kind of shade, and that's the type of color I would look for in a magnetic. And you know, now that I think about it, I wonder if this is close to the raspberry pink magnetic that Cirque put out with their, I think it was called the Midsummer collection. I can't tell if this is just maybe darker or less vibrant or something, but I'm kind of reminded of that. And before we move on, I do want to tap into the art as nails, just because that initial photo was reminding me of Mooncat's Molten Lava, maybe. You know, kind of that super micro flaky / large shimmer particle kind of polish. But I don't think the color is quite the same. I think it's just certain angles, you know, where it looks a little bit more glowy. Maybe that's what I'm being reminded of. But yeah, I was gonna say maybe, you know, this could be a a potential dupe for that dearly departed, but now that I look at it a little bit more, I don't think so. So we can just move on now to the next 2 rows here. And oh my gosh, this Cleona looks so gorgeous. Spanish dancer slug. Okay, first of all, I kind of hate that. But the polish is very pretty. I always love like a fiery polish like this. It is so stunning. It looks like there's even a little, what is that? A bright pink toned red polish with hot orange to yellow shifting shimmer and light pink reflective glitter. Okay, so that's light pink reflective glitter. I thought it was going to be purple. Either way, beautiful shade, very fiery, super gorgeous, but you know, not one that I need. Just one that I wanted to admire for a second. This cracked polish is also very pretty, but kind of familiar, right? Like, you know, we've seen a lot of grays with like a blue shimmer. Even they have a couple of shades like this. I mean, the one that I think looks the closest to this is PB and Blue Jay, but I think that one's a little bit more of a pearlescent shimmer. I wonder if this is maybe close to Mooncat's Castles and Cobwebs from the Baroque collection. I'm kind of forgetting the shade of gray that it was, but it's like a similar vibe, you know? So it's very pretty, but simple enough that we can easily see something like this again. And I'm not really interested in any of the other shades, so we can move on. Okay, from here, I just want to tap into this cuticula because like, what is going on with these colors? Like, what? That is so unique. I don't know, like unexpected. It is so interesting. I really love that with the matte top coat too. Not a shade that I would wear, but I'm just very intrigued by this. You know what I mean? It's just a very interesting color combination. Very, very cool shade, but I don't need it. Let me see. These Dom shades are also very pretty. This purple one, well, they're both purple. This purple reflective one, I want to say is like reminding me of something from Cirque or probably even KB Shimmer. I don't remember if the one from Cirque's Spotlight collection, like the Moonstruck, if the shade of purple was like this or darker or maybe like just warmer toned in general, but I know they've obviously been doing some finishes like this, you know, combining the shimmers with the reflective glitters, and KB Shimmer also has a couple of polishes like that, but I don't know again if it's like a similar enough shade of purple. Super pretty, but I don't need it. If anything, I am a little bit more tempted by this one, which apparently is an encore polish. Very pretty, but also this is definitely one that, like, you know, we've seen before, right? The classic purple base with a blue shimmer. This one I would say is more on the sheer side. At least it looks like that to me. But once you do build it up, the color kind of reminds me of Cirque's Bitchin'. There's also the one from Apocalypse that I'm blanking out on the name. But yeah, this looks like a more sheer, almost like a pearlescent kind of polish. Kind of like a purple version of Mooncat's A Midsummer's Dream. So it's very pretty, but not one that I need. And as far as the rest of the polishes go, they're pretty, but not like, you know, interesting enough for me. Though I do want to point out the Elbe polish is kind of reminding me of Mooncat's 404 Soul Not Found, just being this multi-chrome magnetic. Though the biggest difference is this has a much larger kind of shimmer particle. Oh, it's actually even described as being micro flakies, which makes sense because if you do look close enough, it does have this very like super tiny flaky finish. So yeah, definitely not an exact dupe by any means, because obviously the Mooncat one is very smooth in its finish. Like the shimmer particle is just super finely milled, but the color combination I want to say is basically the same. So, you know, if you prefer flakies, this might be a good option. Although, right, I do always forget that some of these brands are kind of tiny. This one is an 11 milliliter bottle for $13.50. The other Elbe here too is kind of interesting, but let me just scroll down to see the individual polishes. So yeah, it looks like there's a black base with like purple reflective glitters maybe, and then this topper here. The base is is a little bit more interesting to me, even though it is very simple, right? Like you can easily recreate this with a purple reflective topper, which I'm pretty sure Fancy Gloss has something like that. Or I think, what's another brand? Chrisabel Designs, I think, has more reflective toppers. Though from this photo, it does look like there's this additional kind of shimmer going on. But this is the only photo that shows that. So I wonder if it's just a different base color that the swatcher used. Like maybe they're pairing it with this polish, because here you can see purple to reddish pink shimmer, so maybe that's what they did. This one is kind of pretty too, but not really my cup of tea. If anything, I do want to tap into this Garden Path because I think this looks really interesting. It's called Nothing You Can Take From Me, and it's described as an emerald green base, suspending jade holographic micro glitter, gold shifting iridescent aurora flakes, and silver hollow microflakes. This is very, very pretty. I love the shade of green that it is. I want to say it is like familiar to something, but I don't know. And also this photo is like such a surprise because you really see those like gold flakies, like the larger ones. I guess you could see them a little bit here too, but in all the other photos I feel like it's so secondary, but then they really pop in lower lighting. Definitely a beautiful green, but you know, not one that I need in my collection, so we can just move on and we'll keep going to these two rows here. The Hearts and Promises Malachite looks so stunning. I don't have a green like this in my collection. Like the green hollows that I have are just different shades of green. I feel like this has a little bit of that blue teal kind of coloring. So I do think it is pretty unique in that way, but I just, you know, I don't need another green linear hollow in my collection, but it does look really, really beautiful. The blue by Indie Polish by Patty Lopez, Turbulence Burning. I don't think I can share a photo of it yet because it hasn't come out, but they might be doing sneak peeks already. But it does look very similar to an upcoming blue from Fauve, and this is a tiny 10 milliliter bottle. Fauve is a 15 milliliter bottle, so you know, just be on the lookout for that if you are interested in a bright, vibrant cobalt blue shimmer. Lastly, I want to tap into this Jen & Berries called the Showstopper. This looks so pretty. It's described as a cornflower blue jelly base with pink to gold and blue to green, large particle shimmer, and scattered hollow flakies. Okay, so yeah, this is definitely a micro flaky kind of polish. Still very, very pretty, but I think from this like initial photo, or at least when it was a little bit smaller, it kind of reminded me of the sort of foily metallic finish of Island Pea. Like I think the color is a little reminiscent of Snow Kissed, but obviously with the pops of pink and aqua. So, you know, it looks really cute, but I think, yeah, these super tiny micro flaky finishes aren't just, I don't know, they're just not my favorite. They don't do it for me anymore, but I do love the color combination in this. I think that is so pretty. So we can move on now to the next two rows here. And wow, speaking of, you know, a bright cobalt blue, that Lurid is insane. It looks like eye-searing neon. Definitely too bold for my taste. I do wonder if, you know, this would be kind of close to House of Hades, but this is obviously a different formula. It's a large particle aurora shimmer, and yeah, there's a silver light reflective glitter in here. So this is a reflective polish. I know some people, you know, still are not into them. They're very much over the reflectives, but I feel like this blue is so intense. It would probably rival House of Hades. I do think KB Shimmer has a cobalt blue reflective, but I don't think it's quite as eye-searing as this one is, but who knows, maybe it is. But other than that, from here, I would say the only one that I'm like really interested in is the Nirvana Beauty Moonlit Lure, because of course, right, it's a pink base with a blue shimmer. This one is definitely on the brighter side, also on the sheer side, but still a very pretty kind of color. Some of these photos I think remind me of Phoenix's Hush Hush, I want to say. And you know, I love that polish when I see the swatches of it. I mean, I still have it in my collection, but I feel like it is one of those that I'm gonna end up destashing, because I just remember when I wore it, I didn't love it, you know? So this one is kind of reminiscent of that. So I can enjoy it on other people, but not on me. Before we move on from here, I want to say this Nailed It looks kind of like one of the Island P magnetics. I don't know if it's Flipside that I'm thinking of, or maybe it's like a combination. Also, wow, crazy magnetizing technique here. So cool. But yeah, this is definitely like another, you know, multi-chrome magnetic. So it's cool to see. Well, I know we have seen a lot of those in general before, but I don't know, I guess the Illusions collection just made me appreciate them a little bit more than usual, you know? So yeah, we can just move on now to the next two rows here. The polish Marnie's Ranch is so eye-catching. I mean, it's like a neon orange. It looks super beautiful, but I can already tell it's that sort of micro flaky large shimmer particle finish that is probably just gonna drive me insane if I wore it, but I can still appreciate it from afar. If anything, it kind of reminds me, I think, of Apocalypse's For the Pun of It, but that one's more of, you know, a shimmer finish, so I definitely prefer that. I do, though, want to tap into this Paint It Pretty polish, an old familiar friend, just to take some closer looks, because from that, you know, initial photo, I was gonna say this might be a good dupe for Mooncat's Apparition, which is a dearly departed shade. One of my favorite magnetics, even though it's very like simple, admittedly, just being a black base with a silver magnetic pigment. But looking at some more photos, I would say this is not quite there, even though it is described as basically the same thing, like a black base with a silver magnetic. I do see the turquoise microflakies, which is a beautiful, you know, little detail in here, but the black base in this is like very charcoal gray for me. It also does look very sheer here, where, you know, you can see the visible nail line underneath. I really wish we could just see like how many coats, you know, like if they could put it in the corner, like 2 coats or whatever, that would be so helpful. But here it does look a little bit darker, but I don't know, I just still wouldn't call this black. I know that there's all the turquoise, you know, in the way, but the base is just reading charcoal gray or like a gunmetal kind of color. So, you know, not as close to Apparition as I thought, but still an interesting shade. And I do think that Pampered Polishes, you know, this pink is very pretty, but we all know I do not need another pink, so we are just gonna move on. So from here, okay, yeah, the one that caught my eye at first is apparently the duo listing for the Penelope Loose, where it's like the magnetic and everything. This magnetic base looks insane. Like this, whatever this pigment is, I feel like is so, it's like the most elite magnetic pigment you could use, because it just gives such a smooth, oh my god, do you see? What? This looks so good. I'm honestly kind of tempted by this, like just because of how good it looks. I feel like Penelope Loose did this last month maybe, or maybe it was like for PPU or something, but I remember them doing another magnetic that was just monochrome. I think it was like a blue or like teal kind of color, but the pigment alone is just so incredibly smooth and fine. It just gives you that gel look, but with regular polish. You know what I mean? Like just the depth that you see here is so stunning. And seeing the color shifts, like, oh my god, like I love that it goes into this almost, you know, red violet kind of color, and then seeing like both of them in certain angles, that is truly so stunning. This is another one though that is a tiny 10 milliliter sized bottle. Oh my gosh, and it's like almost $14. That is truly so painful. As tempted as I am, like I desperately want to add it to my wish list, but I am gonna hold out hope that we will see something like this from another brand with a bigger bottle. Even if it costs the same, you know, as long as it's a bigger bottle, that'll be more worth it for me, I think. But man, this is so tempting. I cannot stop staring at like this collage. It is just so beautiful. Even this, like, what the hell? What in the candy cane? Oh my god, speaking of candy cane, doing this with the one Mooncat Star Wars polish, that's like literal candy cane. But yeah, I can't stop. This is so pretty. I want it so bad, but I'm not gonna do it, but I want to. Also, for the one person who had asked me like months ago for a recommendation for a purple magnetic, if you haven't already found one, I feel like this is the pinnacle of the purple magnetics. Can you tell that I just like really love that shade? It is so tempting. And even, you know, going back to the duo, the other polish in this duo, the topper here, it is very, very pretty. But now that I see it, I'm like, oh, didn't Cirque come out with something like that at the beginning of the year? I think it was from their Angel Baby collection. I don't remember the name, but I'm pretty sure they had a red shimmer kind of topper with like, you know, the hollow sparkle. So at least that can easily be duped. But unfortunately, you know, that magnetic is going to be living rent-free in my head. Now that I think about it, actually, the finish being so incredibly smooth does remind me of Bee's Knees. I don't know if they came out with a purple one, but I feel like their one shade Bog Dweller has that similar, like, super finely milled pigment. I missed out on that polish, unfortunately. I hope that I can get it in the future, that it'll be like restocked or whatever. I don't know what Bee's Knees plans are exactly for that shade, but I know they have put out like these super glassy gel-like type of magnetics. So maybe they're worth, you know, keeping up with if you want to look for a potential dupe, especially for a larger size, right? But anyway, the other shades that are on here are like, you know, kind of nice, but I'm not really interested in them, so we can just move on. And from here, I mean, okay, you know, the Psyche Minerals purple crayon. Okay, it's a magnetic. I was gonna say the base kind of was reminding me of KB Shimmer's Let the Beat Drop. I don't know if it would be an exact dupe, or if, you know, the shade of purple is like a little different, or maybe the color of the reflective glitter, but this is also a magnetic. It does look very, you know, on the subtle side, which I guess makes sense because it does have this like super intense reflective glitter base, right? But at least there's a nice color contrast. But yeah, I'm not super interested in that one. And the only other color here that I kind of like is the Ribbit Stickets. This one's just described as a bright red jelly base with ruby red and red hollow glitter and a touch of purple to red multichrome. Very pretty. I can't think of like an exact dupe off the top of my head, but it is still pretty, you know, just one to like admire a little bit. And before we move on, I think the only one that's kind of reminding me of something is this Red-Eyed Lacquer, where it kind of looks like Cirque's Succulent Garden, but actually I think this is just more gray. Yeah, it's a dark gray Crelly. I thought it had a little bit of a green. I think it's just the shimmer, you know, sort of like tinging it that way. So now that I know that it's gray, I feel like the shade of gray reminds me of, what was it called? I think it's Hollow Taco's Foreshadow, but that one looks more like this with the yellowy copper kind of shimmer head on. But obviously, you know, this Red-Eyed is red head on, so a little bit different, but kind of in the same family maybe. So we can just move on to the next two rows here. And actually, you know what, because that top Ribbit Stickets is like part of a duo, so we'll just go on to these two rows. This other Ribbit Stickets is kind of cute, you know, I always love a cute little Corelli. This one looks so fun with like the primary colors in here. Not really one that I would wear, but it's fun. I love a cute Crelly. I would say my favorite from here is probably the Sassy Pants Pacific Waves. This one kind of reminds me of a KB Shimmer, or maybe a Cirque. I don't know if it's the one tealy blue-green from the Moonstruck collection that is like kind of giving me that same vibe. So, you know, it's familiar, still very pretty. I especially love how it looks in this shot where it's like just so sparkly in this lower lighting. For some reason, in all of the brighter lighting, it just kind of looks a little flat, maybe it's just one of those shades that looks better in real life than in photos. And before we move on from here, I just want to tap into the Sassy Cats Green Elixir. This looks so unique. The base is really interesting, kind of one of those pruggly greens maybe. It's described as a sage base, which, you know, I normally do love sage greens, but I feel like there's a weird kind of undertone in this, but maybe it's just depending on the lighting or something, because in some photos, I don't know, it just kind of changes. Maybe it's also the shimmer, the magnetic is also just a really interesting, yeah, it's a purple pink glowy shimmer with a blue purple magnetic. So really interesting combination. Definitely a unique shade, but not one that I need. So we can finally move on to the last couple of polishes here. And okay, this Watcha immediately is catching my eye because I'm like, oh my god, is this just a teal version of the one, what was it, Penelope Loose shade that I was like gushing over? But obviously this has, you know, a much more noticeable like shimmer particle. Still very pretty. I love the color. You know, funny enough, actually, this color combination reminds me of Mooncat's Moral Decay, their thermal that they just came out with, which I wasn't super crazy about, but clearly I really like this color combination better as a magnetic. Not enough to get it, but it is really pretty. I do like, I would love to see this magnetic pigment again, like whatever, you know, this color is. I don't know what base color would complement it even more though, because I'm sure we've probably seen it, you know, paired with black, but I don't know, I just kind of want other non-black magnetics. I feel like I have a lot of those in my collection already. So this one in a way is tempting, but I'm not crazy about this shade of the blue base. You know what I mean? It's just the magnetic shimmer in this that I really like, but not enough to get. I would say my favorite from here though is the Witch Cult. This one is inspired by Tangy from Animal Crossing. So cute. You know I love a good sparkly, shimmery kind of orange. It is just so pretty. It's kind of a bit of a chameleon shade though, because it looks like it changes so much. Obviously that can also just depend on, you know, the skin tone and like the lighting setup, but yeah, it's just so interesting how some photos look more yellow leaning or like more peachy, while others are more reddish orange, or maybe not red orange, but it's just like a little bit of a warmer orangey base. It is super pretty. Oh, just so cute. I love the inspiration. Definitely very tempted by it, but yeah, because it just looks so different in almost every photo, I don't know if I really want to commit to it, because I prefer how it looks in like the hero shot, right, of just this warmer orangey, almost like a coral undertone there, or even in these photos where it's like the softer peachy kind of glow. That is so pretty. But then I notice, you know, the swatchers with lighter skin like mine, I don't love how it looks, right? Like, obviously no offense to the swatchers, you know, or anything like that, but I just feel like if I were to get this polish, I would end up being disappointed in it, where it's just not giving that cute, warm, peachy, orangey glow. So yeah, maybe I should just skip it and, you know, avoid the potential disappointment. But it is definitely a very cute shade. But yeah, just by going off of the photos, I feel like I like how it looks more on people with a deeper skin tone than mine. So yeah, I'm not really interested in the Zombie Claw, the Wicked, the Victorian Varnish, so we can just look at my wish list, which, right, should only have the one polish, the Alchemy. Oh, it is so pretty. Oh my god, I love I love the flakies in this. And I love the base color, like, oh, just that periwinkle, you know, it just is one of my favorite colors. And I feel like the base with the colors of the flakies, they complement each other so beautifully. It is so pretty and whimsical. I love it so much, but I'm not gonna lie, there is also that part of me that's like, yeah, it's really pretty, but you can also live without this. And I'm sure that I can, right? Because again, I'm not like, you know, the biggest flaky lover. I unfortunately do feel a little scared that, you know, this might be one of the flakies that I put on and then it just gives me the ick for whatever reason. But it does look just so pretty and so magical. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm kind of waffling on this, so I think I will keep it in my wish list, but I'm gonna do my best to just, you know, talk myself out of it because it's pretty, but I know I also don't need it. Like, I'm kind of surprised I would rather get this than the magnetic that I was gushing over for like 5 minutes. So that wraps up my window shopping for this month's Hella Handmade. As always, I would love to know what you think of this month's offerings, how many things are on your wish list, or were you successful in just window shopping this time around? Because obviously, as you saw, I was kind of tempted by a lot of things this month, which were pretty surprising, but I am proud of myself for only having the one polish in my wish list, though I'm still very on the fence about it, where the minute that I'm not looking at it, I'm like, you know what, it's fine. I don't need it, right? If you ask me right now, I can skip it. I don't need it. But as soon as I look at the photos, it is so pretty and it makes me want to get it. So I think what I'm gonna do is remove it from my wish list so that way I'm just not actively looking at it, because I just don't want to regret getting another flaky that I just don't end up wearing as often, even though I do think I like this one more than the alchemy ones that I shared, and one of the alchemy, you know, being a dupe for Island Peas up above, which I already have. I don't really want to like replace that one, but I'm not trying to add another similar polish to it, you know what I mean? So as much as it pains me, obviously, to remove it, I think that's what I'm gonna do. So I will stay strong, because like I mentioned towards the end too, it's almost surprising that I have that polish in my wish list and not the magnetic, because I feel like just listening to myself gush over it, you can hear me go feral for that shade. And that reminded me of Bee's Knees Bog Dweller, which, you know, I know isn't around. I checked the website, it's archived now, which I'm pretty sure means it's like not coming back. So that's such a bummer, but I'm willing to look for it like secondhand. But that is a polish that I would rather spend the money on than a flaky. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm gonna do. But yeah, make sure you let me know if you're gonna be shopping or skipping HHC this month, because again, I know a lot of people are already excited for next month's PPU being very Halloween themed. I'm assuming since brands do their own theme, next month's HHC won't really be like spooky, maybe with the exception of, you know, the other miscellaneous types of products, but I'm assuming the polishes will just kind of be like their normal thing. But I know I'm still excited to see the spooky Halloween kind of polishes for PPU next month. So yeah, make sure you let me know what you're doing, or just let me know any and all thoughts you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!